Hi, I'm Gary Burton, and I'm here backstage at Symphony Hall, the hometown of Vic Firth percussion. And Vic Firth, in fact, this is where Vic used to hang out for a lot of years when he was with the Boston Symphony. And I'm playing here today, so I thought it'd be nice to talk to you a little bit about the vibes. And starting with sort of my concept of this instrument. It's had an interesting history. It's a fairly new instrument, as instruments go. It was invented around 1929, and that makes it a fairly new instrument. In fact, I started playing it 20 years later, in 1949, when I was just a kid, when I was 6 years old. So it was really new to me when I was starting out on the thing. It comes, of course, from a very long tradition of mallet instruments. It's a very simple concept of something that makes a pitch, a piece of wood or a piece of metal in this case, and you put it over a pipe to create an air chamber to give it some resonance, and you've got an instrument, and you make it lay out the scale like the piano keyboard. It's pretty basic, and there really hasn't been a whole lot of change in the way the instruments have been made. Over the years, the mechanics get a little more sophisticated, but the actual playing part of the instrument has pretty much stayed the same. I started out playing marimba, and maybe a lot of you also play marimba or began on marimba. And it's pretty similar to the vibraphone. The main difference, of course, is with the vibes, we have the pedal to sustain notes, and that changes things a little bit. And of course, I play the vibes nowadays, so that's what I'm going to talk about most. And one of the first points I want to make is some things that are unique about the vibraphone. In my opinion, it is probably the easiest instrument to learn to play. Now, I know that may sound funny if you are currently trying to learn to play the vibraphone, but think about it. If you play the clarinet or the violin, any of those kinds of instruments, you're struggling for the first years just to get a decent sound on the thing, just learning how to play in tune. With our instrument, you hit the note, it's in tune. You're there already. You hit the note, it's got a decent tone already. That takes you 2 or 3 years to be able to do if you play the clarinet or the saxophone or the trumpet or something. We also don't have complicated fingering systems. The wind instruments have fingerings. Even the piano, which is sort of similar to the mallet instruments, you have the keys, but you've got 10 fingers, and a lot of learning to play the piano is learning how to finger so your hands don't get tangled up. Trying to play the scales and so on. With us, we've got either 2 mallets or 4 mallets. It's much easier to learn to play. So really, technically, it comes down to hitting the bars correctly, learning how to use the pedal correctly, and manipulating the mallets for 4-mallet technique. But the real challenge of playing the instrument is the same as playing any other instrument, playing the right note at the right time. And with vibraphone, you can get right into making music pretty quickly. And this is especially true if you've played other instruments as well. If you've been a piano player or a guitar player or something else and already know the notes and the scales and so on, then it doesn't take too long before you can get some dexterity on the vibraphone. And in fact, for a lot of the vibraphone players that have become well known, they started out on other instruments originally and switched to the vibraphone. So let me in fact talk about some of these early players of the vibraphone and kind of give you a little bit of the history. As I said before, it was invented in 1929 more or less. And the concept was to make a metal xylophone. It was invented not by musicians, but by an instrument company in Chicago. And someone had the idea to use the concept of the xylophone or marimba, but use steel, then in those days, steel bars. And then someone else came up with the idea of putting a fan in the resonators to give it a vibrato effect. Now, actually, it's not a vibrato. Technically, a vibrato is when the pitch goes up and down. But in our case, the volume is going up and down, which is called a tremolo. But I guess the tremolophone didn't really roll off the tongue too well, so vibraphone became the name. And actually, that isn't even the patented name. I think if you buy an instrument and you look at the label, it says Vibraharp. And for some reason, that name has never really caught on. Vibraphone seems to be the more common name, and it's certainly the name that's used in foreign countries and other languages. Everybody says vibraphone or vibraphone. So that's the one I use as well.